Hey, what's up, Masters? Welcome to another episode of Path to Mastery. And today we are with Jono Bacon. Jono, what's going on, man?
It's all good, man. Just hanging out, living the dream.
Living the dream. I love it, man. That's what we're all doing. Living the dream from home these days, right?
We're trying.
No doubt. Well, we're doing better than trying. We're doing it. Or at least
we're doing it. We're sure. No cabin fever quite yet, but it's starting to set in. So
I hear you. So we're going to do something a little different. I'm just going to go right to live with this episode. It's going out tomorrow morning because we have an event that I want everybody to register for. And it's going to be at 1 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow. And it's on crushing your real estate business during COVID and beyond, because right now we are dealing with a lot of things, and we're going to talk about that today, Jono, as well. Not just things that we're dealing with now, and maybe if you're in Massachusetts for at least a couple more weeks, but what happens when this is over. So that said, I want to jump into it, but I do want to acknowledge my sponsors, Vulcan 7, because they've been supporting us for years. And without Vulcan 7, I don't know if we'd still be doing this. And they have tremendous products, so you can check their dialers out, their CRM, all the data that they provide. Go to a special opportunity for my listeners at vulcan7.com/path to mastery. Try their whole suite out. 2 weeks for only $49. I don't know how you can beat that. All right. That said, that's enough out of that. The intro and all the advertising and all that good stuff. What's up, Jono? How are you, man?
Good. Yeah, things are good. Keeping busy. This whole COVID thing's weird. But, it's nice to see the family more. And I'll be honest with you, man, I'm not missing airplanes. All of these people who are like, I just got my 1,000,000 miles. Okay, well, dude, you wasted your life in an airplane. Don't do that, okay? This is great being on the ground. There's more room. Food's better.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, listen, we appreciate you spending some time with us today. You are a consultant. I know you have a big background in working with people and technology. You have a book. It's called People Powered. You're someone we want to talk to today, and you're going to tell us about, how do we, make the most out of the situation we're dealing with right now with technology and people. And I think something that I quickly caught about you on your bio is that you say it's not really about the technology, it's about the people, right?
It is.
Am I correct with that?
Totally. Yeah, it's all about the people. I mean, the basic gist of what I do is I work with organizations to help them build communities, right? So from large businesses like, Google and Microsoft and Intel and Deutsche Bank and Santander to smaller startups who are just kind of getting going. And if you look at the relationship that people have with businesses and with brands, it's changing. Years ago, I'm not sure how many old fogies listen to your podcast, but years ago, before the internet, you primarily engage with companies via a customer support phone line, and then you'd engage with them via their email address. And then when internet marketing became more and more of a thing, you'd start receiving email promotion from those companies, and people will be building a list. And these days, everyone's walking around with a cell phone in their pocket, right? And millennials are growing up with a relationship with brands and a relationship with technology socially. So no longer can companies simply broadcast to their customers. There needs to be a relationship. There needs to be an ongoing sense of engagement. And what's neat is that in recent years, companies have been building communities where your customers actually generate material and promotion for you. So a good example would be Salesforce. They've got a community of over 2 million members, and they create content. They run events. They promote Salesforce. They provide support to each other. And there are a litany of examples of this. I walked through a whole bunch of this in People Powered, like Harley Davidson, Procter & Gamble, Random House. If you look at crowdfunding, the impact that that's had, people building internal communities in banks and financial institutions. It's all fundamentally about the human condition. Technology is merely a way in which we deliver it, but it's all about people want to spend time together and collaborate together.
That's interesting you say that, and I agree with you. It's funny though. I was the guy, and I know I don't look like I just turned 50, and I was the guy. Thank you. Yeah, I was the guy though that always would pick up the phone and call. Like I would never use the chat box or use the email, and I would always call. Now I just realize it's actually so much easier to just grab someone on chat and kind of keep doing what I'm doing instead of picking up the phone and waiting.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of this as well is, I'm sure, again, people listening or watching this will do this. Like if you've got a problem with something, right? And it could be, I'm trying to solve a particular business problem. I'm trying to learn a new skill, or what's that thing on my leg? What do? You go to Google and you type it in. And hopefully Google will come up with something on the first page that gives you a sense of what's happening. But in many cases, people don't have a community, so they can't manifest those kinds of questions. Whoa, Google, my phone's talking to me because I mentioned the word Google. So if you...
always listening.
Always
scary,
listening,
actually.
So one of the things I always recommend with companies is, if you build a community and it's publicly available, that gets indexed on Google, right? So if you have a customer asks a question, you have another customer who goes and provides a response to that question, that gets indexed on Google. So when people you don't know yet, or future customers, are trying to figure out how to use your product or your service, or they're evaluating it, they type it into Google, it comes to your community. And that's how you manifest that kind of insight. So it's kind of like, it's trying to figure out the most intelligent way to limit the amount of work and use technology to get the message out there as broadly as possible. Yeah,
I love that. It's funny because right now in these crazy times we're in, where I have to sometimes check out of, I can get up at 6 a.m. and before I know it, I'm on my computer, and then all of a sudden it's 7:30 at night and I'm still on my computer. I'm like, where the hell did the day go by? It's nuts. But I do want to, go back to what you were saying about, building community. How do our listeners, the people like real estate agents, salespeople, how do they, give us an example of that? What would that look like we'll use a real estate agent.
Yeah. So let's look at real estate. So the first thing I think is understanding the potential of this, right? Now, obviously, this is a good time for me to shill my book, People Powered, and it kind of walks into this and how you build out a community. But I think the first thing is to know, if you build a relationship, real estate agents will know this better than anyone, right? Is that building and investing in long-term relationships is the way in which you grow your business, right? You'll get to know people at your local chamber of commerce, people in the local business community, because at some point they're going to sell their house, or they're going to want to buy a house, and you want them to call you. So the first element to this, I think, is knowing the value of fostering those relationships. In terms of how you actually go about doing it, in a nutshell, the first thing you got to do is say, what is the value I want to generate for my audience, right? So for example, this could be, you want to build a community of people who are interested in real estate. You could bring them into something simple like a Facebook group, or it could be a Slack channel. You could set up a dedicated forum or something along those lines, but give them a reason to go. Now, that could be access to great content. It could be access to guidance and material. Maybe you want to build a community of other real estate agents who you can build a relationship with. Maybe you want to build a community of people who are kind of millennials who are kind of getting into the house buying market and they don't know how to get started. You give them material that kind of brings them in, that excites them. And then you enable the community to chat to each other and engage with each other. And the way in which you do this is you pick a place for them to go. And again, it can be as simple as a Facebook group, but I would generally recommend using something such as your own platform, because Facebook, with all the controversy, who knows what's going to happen, how long they're going to be around in terms of their groups and the restrictions there. But the key thing is you keep the conversation going and you incentivize those people to keep engaging with each other. So if someone goes into your community, they join up, they ask a question, you provide some guidance, you provide some great content, and then they start answering other people's questions, and they start coming up with, oh, well, why don't we run a meetup? Why don't we organize a virtual event? Why don't we organize a webinar? When they start being proactive like that, you recognize them, you thank them, you engage with them, you send them something in the mail. It's really no different. The skills that a real estate agent uses on an individual to kind of build the relationship and recognize that individual and stay in their kind of line of sight, you just apply that to the group. Is essentially how you do it.
Okay, so you're first you're determining the value. You're coming up with the value of the community. Then you obviously start finding the right people, the members to be in the community. So you're going to build the community. You're going to figure out the platform. So you said, I don't know. So tell us more about what you were talking about with Facebook, and then give us, is there an alternate community if someone's not using Facebook groups, which is essentially what everybody's doing now? Where else would we go?
So you, with every community, you want to have a shared clubhouse where you point your community to go to. And the key thing is, this is the big mistake a lot of companies make with communities is they get people to that community, such as a Facebook group. But the key thing is you need to feed them. Okay. You need to give them content. You need to give them offers. You need to give them opportunities. Okay. So first of all, choose a clubhouse. Now, Facebook is good because everybody's there. It's easy to use, but there is increasing levels of controversy around Facebook's privacy policies and things such as that, which means that the problem if you build a group in Facebook is that you're in their world. If for some reason they decide to shut down groups or they decide to significantly limit groups or block out certain industry types, then you could be completely impacted by it. Sure. So it's a balance, So what I tend to recommend is run your own infrastructure, such as your own community, such as using a platform like Discourse, and then promote it in something like Facebook. Like Discourse. Discourse is a forum platform that you can use, or there's another one called Chorus or Lithium. There's a whole bunch of these community platforms out there. The one benefit that you do have... Aren't
those platforms run by these companies as well, where if they decided to if they went out, that you would lose the platform? Well, what's the difference between the
two?
Two?
Well, if you use something like Discourse, it's something called open source, where it's completely free to use, and then you can the code will always exist essentially, and you can either run it yourself or you can run it on somebody else's service. Yes, with something like Chorus or Lithium, you're kind of living in their world, but I would argue that there's less risk attached to them than there is to Facebook in some ways. Facebook, they're kind of a business that's operating like a utility today, but they're not regulated like a utility, and that's why I think there's elements of risk there.
Interesting.
But the major benefit...
This might be a silly question, but lithium, is that the same as the cryptocurrency lithium, or is this different?
Nah, different one.
Different one. I see. I have no idea.
Also, not a Nirvana album as well.
Okay. So that tells you what I know about that. All right.
I mean, one thing as well, just to touch on, is one of the other benefits of a Facebook group in terms of weighing these things up is that when people are active in a Facebook group, you can then advertise towards them. So you can use Facebook advertising to target those people who come to your group. And that is a benefit, especially if you want to do lead generation. So,
interesting. All right, awesome. So what would you say now from what you're seeing are some of the biggest challenges that we are facing right now with maybe, being kind of stuck at home and listen, the reality is everybody's being impacted by this in some way or another.
Yep.
Whether you lost a job, whether your spouse lost a job, whether you're stuck at home, somebody in the family's sick, what are you seeing, or what are you telling people? How do we deal with this? How do we cope moving forward?
So I agree with you. I mean, the thing is that it's a really tough time right now. People are losing their lives. People are losing their jobs. All kinds of challenges are out there. I think the one silver lining to all of this is that the world is becoming more familiar with online communication and collaboration. Zoom has gone from relative obscurity outside of the business world into something that John Krasinski's using to make his show, right? And people are familiar with. So. The benefit of that is it provides an opportunity for us to communicate more broadly.
Masters, we're going to get you right back to the show. I want to let you know about a really awesome webinar we have coming up, and it's all about getting you back into production. Because what's happening right now, the gates are going to open soon, and there's definitely going to be a frenzy. It's almost like we're coming out of the winter, right? So what we want to do is start prepping people so that when that happens, obviously you're doing things now, but there's going to be a huge frenzy of business coming. I want to share with you how some of the top producers on the planet are doing this. So we have Sean Gorse, who closed just under 500 houses in 2019. We have Tina Beliveau, who runs a $50 million team. We have Jim Gray, who's a production ninja productivity coach. So they're going to be sharing the strategies right now that they're doing, not just to set themselves up so that when this happens, they get their massive piece of the pie, but also what they're going to be doing when the doors, I guess, or the gates finally open. So that's coming soon, my friends. May 7th, sign up. Go to davidihill.com/event. Sign up. Again, it's May 7th. Or email me if you like, david@davidihill.com, and I will get you signed up. Don't forget the I. Again, davidihill.com/event. Guys, I'll see you soon. You rock.
Again, using real estate as an example, a lot of real estate agents will probably have a relatively limited amount of technological experience and a relatively limited technical tool set. But now more and more people are getting familiar with technology. So you've got the opportunity to engage with a broader group of people. And that's one of the benefits of communities. The tricky thing is, and the challenges here is, frankly, building communities is kind of a weird, challenging thing that a lot of people don't really know how to do, right? Because it's this weird mixture of, I pick the right tools, I need to provide the right incentives, I need to build growth and engage with people. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote People Powered, is to kind of break that down into a simple blueprint that people can follow. But the thing is that you could go and buy People Powered and you could build out your community strategy. But at the end of the day, if you don't make the time to engage with your members and keep them interested, it will wither away and die. I would say if you can't commit the time to going to your community and spending time talking to them, creating content and sharing it with them, encouraging them to participate, then you're going to struggle. A community is a little bit like if you go to a restaurant and it's empty and there's no one in there, you don't want to go and eat because it's empty. There's no atmosphere. But if it's packed and there's a lot of people in there and they're having a great time, you're more likely to go in there. So you got to build that momentum to pull more people into your community. But once you get that momentum, then they tend to talk to each other. Then they tend to generate content for each other. They organize events for each other. And then you start reaping the real benefits from it.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's something that really I've actually been struggling with, and because I built a few communities on Facebook. One grew to about 1,100, and then I kind of fell off and started doing other things. Right. And before you know it, it turned into like this hodgepodge of different people trying to advertise and promote all kinds of. It turned into nothing. It's junk. But you're right. I think so. How much of a commitment? Because you're right. It's the more time I'm able to invest and go in there, then it just seems like you're getting a little bit more engagement. But at the same time, it can be, I don't know, I'm not a super patient person. I'm guessing there's a lot of listeners that are similar to me.
Yeah.
Where you want to build a community and you want engagement like right now. You're going to do a few posts and you get nothing. Crickets. Is there a time frame, Jono? Is there a certain
it does take
amount?
Time.
Like, should we be posting daily, weekly? What does that look like?
There is a time frame, because it takes time to get people there. I mean, if you've already got an audience, right? So let's say you've got an email list and you've got 500 or 600 people on an email list, again, using a real estate agent as an example, then you could invite some of those folks. And I would actually recommend that you do something called an early adopter initiative, where you bring 30 or 40 of those people on. First of all, you encourage them to participate. You tell them the reason why this is going to be worthwhile, and you help them to shape your community, right? In the same way that the best businesses that you ever work at, you feel like you can shape the structure of the business and influence how the business operates, not just do your job. And you want your community to feel malleable like that. But it takes time to build that kind of growth. The comparison I would make here, and a lot of people listening to this, I'm sure, are familiar with some elements of marketing, is it's like building an email list. When you start building your email list, you have no one, right? And it takes weeks, it takes months to build your email list. And then eventually what happens is it starts being able to drive revenue for you because you've got enough critical momentum behind it. Like Russell Brunson talks about $1 per person on your list is kind of like a revenue kind of piece to this. So I think the key element here is it will take time. It's not a silver bullet. It's not an overnight thing. But it doesn't take a lot of time every day to kick it off and to maintain it. So you can think of it as an investment in a business system in the same way that your CRM or your social media networks or your email list, these are assets to your business that it takes time to build out. But what happens is the ultimate return on that is more than worth it. It's not like you need to spend all day every day building a community.
Sure.
You can spend an hour every day building it, but it will be an investment in your broader business success.
I love it. So this is good. This is helped me with a few additional questions. So is it an email? I mean, it's not just an email, right? Because everybody gets so many emails. Should you actually reach out to somebody and say, hey, I'm starting a community? Would that make sense? Is a text, or you're sending videos? Like, how are you engaging these people?
I think you need to evaluate who the person is. So I'll give you an example. When I work with clients, one of the things that talk about in People Powered is the first thing you do is you decide the value you want to create for your community members, right? Because if you don't create value for them, they're going to get bored and they're not going to come back. There's too many distractions out there. So they've got to be like, I want to be a part of this. This is awesome. And that could be content, learning skills, getting to network with people. Then what you do is you decide on your audiences. And your audiences are going to have certain communication habits. So to give you an example, I'm working with a client right now. We're building a community for executives and a community for engineers. Now, the executives are never going to go to a forum. They're probably not going to go to a Facebook group. They may do, but they're probably going to primarily communicate via in-person events and dinners, email, and maybe the odd Zoom call here and there. But the engineers are going to be very familiar with going to online forums and online resources and spending time in Slack channels and things like that. So I would choose the medium that's right for your audience. And you might want to segment your audience into those two different types. So, for example, for a real estate agent, you may have a specific kind of community that you want to be focused on, such as, again, young buyers just getting into the market for the first time. That might be a specialty. They're probably going to be more than comfortable coming to an online forum or a Facebook or something along those lines. But then for your older audience, maybe people who are looking to kind of downsize because all the kids have moved out, they're probably going to primarily communicate via email. So you want to design it to those habits. Forcing people into a new way of working is really hard, and you don't want to go down that path.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, it's interesting. One of the benefits, besides, it's funny you talked about Zoom earlier. We should have invested in Zoom on March 12th, but unfortunately,
you're not kidding.
I missed the ball on that one. But so what about going forward with all the tech? Everything happening. We must have an advantage now, right? With all this technology, with building these communities. Do you think it gave us an advantage? Because the reason I ask is because one of the things I did was kind of like old school, but I have a database of 1,500 people for my real estate business. I went through and called every single person just to check in on them. And I reconnected with some of those people. And do you think, obviously you can do that in real estate, but are you going to do that in a Facebook community? We don't really know people.
Yeah. So what I always recommend here is there's and again, this is kind of covered in the book. There's 3 phases that community members go through. When they join your community, they're brand new, and I call them casual, right? They show up from time to time. They haven't really built a habit in coming to your community. So they're not showing up very often. Then you have your regulars, the people who show up every week, who are always there. And then you've got a very small number of people that are core. And these are the people who are just super passionate about what you're doing. You want to talk on the phone to those core people all the time, right? And you'll know who they are because they're just always there. They're always showing up. And there'll be a number of people in your regulars that you want to just periodically just get on a call with them. Maybe you organize an event, an online webinar or something along those lines where they can go. So you want to identify what is the milestone for people to go from casual to regular to core, right? So for example, one milestone could be people creating content for your community. If someone's created 5 pieces of content, then they become a regular, right? It could be how often they show up and participate. It could be how much they answer questions to other people. It could be how much they participate in the events that you're running. Because what you can do is when you're able to segment those people, first of all, you can build a closer relationship with them. But the people who are the core members, the really kind of enthusiastic group, they will mentor your regulars. And your regulars will mentor your casual people, and that's how you build scale.
How do you get people to contribute content to the community? That's one thing. That you saying that, I'm realizing like I don't have really anybody that's doing that right now. We have a smaller group. It's got about 350 members. The engagement could be a lot better. You know what I mean? So how do you get people to do that? Engage, contribute.
This is going to sound unbelievably simple. You just ask them.
Yeah, I
knew it sounds crazy, but
yeah.
I think if you've got a community that people are passionate about being in, but what you do is you say, look, we'd love to create a bit of content on this, right? It could be like 3 tips for using Zoom more effectively. And what you can do is you can say to them, it just needs to be 500 words. We'll do all the editing. We'll get it online. We'll credit you. We will promote it with your Twitter and Facebook or whatever handles publicly. And then what you can sometimes do is say, and we'll give you a $25 Amazon gift card. Like, it's amazing how much content your community will generate for you if you ask them and you take all of the annoyance and the pain out of it. Because a lot of people, especially young people younger in their career, they want that recognition. They want to be able to say, I wrote something for path to mastery. I wrote something for something else. So
I love it. And then and then they're going to probably even invite more people, right? Because now they're contributing their content. So they're going to want to get other people involved in the community. Yeah.
And when you get those rewards lined up, and by the way, rewards don't always have to be money. It can be just saying, we really appreciate what you're doing, or it can be, just offering. If there's anyone I know who you want a connection to, I'm more than happy to make the intro, whatever it might be. There's ways to pay it back for when people help you.
Can communities become too large?
I don't think they can become too large, but they can become mismanaged because of their size. It's actually a problem. When I was at Canonical, for example, we built a community of about 200,000 software engineers and over 20 million participants. Wow. And it became pretty difficult because the bigger a community gets, by definition, it becomes less personal. So, your example of your 350 people, the good news about that is you can reasonably have a fairly personal relationship with those 350, not completely personal. But when you start getting to thousands of people, you have to systematize a lot of stuff with computers. And no one ever wants to be thanked by a computer. Or I hate these emails where people pretend to be actually emailing you personally, because it's nonsense. It's completely inauthentic. So you can use technology as a means to scale up, but I think you need to be very thoughtful in being authentic in how you do that.
I love it, man. Well, listen, I appreciate your time today. What didn't I ask you? What did I miss here? What questions didn't I ask?
No, I think we covered it all. Yeah. I mean, I think it's an interesting topic. I'm a complete open book as well to people. So, if people are curious about this, drop me an email, jono@jonobacon.com. People Powered is out. It's on Amazon and all the rest of it. So
awesome. Do you have an Audible as well? Audible audiobook?
Yep. I wrote and I read it myself with my velvety English baritone.
I love it. So what, final question for me. Well, there's two more questions. What do you see I'm in Massachusetts. We're still in kind of stay at home. It's loosening up a little bit. Yeah. Lockdown, you can call it, but it's really not lockdown, but it's right. I'm glad we did this, right? Because we didn't have to, be as impacted as some of the other states. But what my question is, how do you think how is this going to change the norm? Obviously the norm it's going to take a while to if we ever get back to where it used to be, like handshaking and hugging and stuff like that. But what about business wise? How's this going to change everything going forward? I know for me, I never worked from home. Now I'm like, this is pretty good. As long as I can leave my house in the morning and go to the gym, then I don't get stuck in front of the computer, But other than that, I learned to make this work. And there's no commute. I love the fact that I don't have to commute.
I think there's going to be a few things. First of all, I think people are going to be very, very sick of commuting when we get back to this. And I think it's going to encourage more working from home and remote teleworking. Secondly, I think the popularity of virtual events is going to grow, because virtual events always, frankly, sucked. But now people are being forced to do them. Lots of innovation is happening with virtual events right now, which I think is cool. But I also think that when human beings have very short memories, and as soon as the vaccine's ready and it's in mass production and people are using it, I think reasonably we're going to go back to the way we were. We're still going to have large events. Concerts are going to start happening, and I think the virtual events will take a bit of a backseat on that. But I do think the benefit is people are going to be much more familiar with online discussion, video conferencing, and collaboration. That's been happening for years in tech. Like I've been doing video conferencing since the early 2000s. But for example, for a lot of real estate agents who may be less familiar with this, who were kind of thrust into this because of coronavirus, I think their technology palette is going to be much more available to them, which I think is going to be a good thing. So
I love it. I think the live events are going to have more of a going for, it's going to be a big deal to have a live event in the future, right? And it's going to be a premium to have a speaker come in. And
can you imagine when you go to that first music show and that first note is played? It's going to be awesome. Can't wait.
Yeah, love it. All right. So everybody listening to this today, Jono, what do you want them to take? What should we walk away with today?
So I'd say a few things. One is, this trend towards communities is happening. And it's something I think you can harness today, but I think it's going to become more and more of an expectation from consumers moving forward, especially with the younger generation coming in. So this is something that I think is worth thinking about today, but it's something you're going to need to think about moving forward. I think the second thing is that there's a huge amount of opportunity here, but it takes time and it takes effort to learn it and to benefit from it. There's no silver bullet. There's no get rich quick scheme in building communities. But the third thing is, I think you can harness this and you can build it into your business slowly and in a measured way, and still be doing the other things that you're doing. And people powered will help you through through that journey. So
awesome. Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate your time. Everybody
awesome.
listening, and make sure you get yourself a copy of People Powered, and we'll see you hopefully soon. And if we'll see you outside, maybe we can do some handshaking or maybe even a hug.
God, a hug?
Yeah, I know, right?
Who knows?
Right. Yeah, right. Who knows? All right, man. Well, hey, it's been a pleasure. Thanks again. I appreciate it.
Likewise. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Hey, before you jump on to what's next, I just want to thank you for checking out the show. And if you like what you heard, please give me a review on iTunes. It helps tremendously. It helps us get guests, and I just so appreciate it. And if you want, send me an email and I will read your review right here on the podcast. Email me, david@davidihill.com. Again, I want to thank you. Check out our sponsors. I appreciate our sponsors. Without them, we can't do this. Vulcan7.com for your expired FISBOs, all that stuff. CRM, Vulcan7.com/path to mastery. Again, David's free book. Get yourself a free audiobook. And health and nutrition, is number one to me. So check out Advocare products, which are tremendous products. As a matter of fact, Patrick Mahomes uses the products. So go to livelongersmarter.com. Again, livelongersmarter.com to check out health and nutrition products. My friends, again, I appreciate you listening to the show. You rock.